High observer Viathin adjusted their sensory membranes as the quantum display illuminated the chamber with a soft, azure glow. The star map before them highlighted an unremarkable spiral arm of the galaxy, a region the Galactic Conclave had long dismissed as devoid of intelligent life. Yet here they were, analyzing data that defied centuries of assumption. "Play the recording again," Viathin commanded, their crystalline appendages shifting in what their species considered anticipation. The holographic projection materialized, showing a primitive spacecraft laboriously making its way through the void between their third and fourth planets. Its chemical propulsion system left an easily traceable trail of radiation, practically broadcasting its presence to any advanced civilization that might be watching. "Fascinating," muttered science director Zaxera, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with scholarly interest. "They've achieved spaceflight using purely chemical propulsion. Rather inefficient, but the engineering is surprisingly elegant in its simplicity." Viathin studied the craft's trajectory. "This is the 7th such vehicle we've observed this orbital cycle. For a supposedly primitive species, they seem remarkably determined to explore their system." The science director's patterns shifted to a shade indicating mild amusement. "Shall we add them to the Conclave's registry of emerging civilizations? They've barely achieved lunar colonization. By our standards, they're practically infants." Viathin's response was interrupted by a sudden alert from their quantum sensors. Another human vessel had appeared, this one larger than the previous ones. Its trajectory suggested it was headed for their fourth planet, Mars, according to intercepted transmissions. "Their progress is unprecedented," Viathin noted, manipulating the display to show a timeline of human technological advancement. From atmospheric flight to interplanetary travel in less than a century of their time measurements. "A statistical anomaly," Zaxera dismissed. "Many species experience brief periods of accelerated development before plateauing. Remember the Zoraxians? They achieved nuclear fission within 50 years of discovering electricity, then spent the next millennium locked in tribal warfare." But Viathin wasn't convinced. Something about the humans' development pattern nagged at their analytical centers. "Initiate a deep scan of their communication networks." The chamber's displays filled with streams of intercepted data, radio waves, digital transmissions, and something the humans called internet traffic. The sheer volume was overwhelming, but what caught Viathin's attention wasn't the quantity, but the content. "Look at this," they directed, highlighting a particular data stream. "Their entertainment media, what they call science fiction. They're not just exploring space, they're imagining technologies that shouldn't even be conceptually possible for their development level." Zaxera's patterns flickered dismissively. "Imagination isn't achievement, High Observer. Many primitive species dream of the stars before they can reach them. But how many imagine quantum entanglement before discovering nuclear fusion?" Viathin countered, bringing up more examples. "Their scientists are theorizing about concepts that took our civilization millennia to grasp. And look at their response to challenges." The display showed historical records, natural disasters, conflicts, technological setbacks. In each case, the humans adapted with remarkable speed, often emerging stronger than before. "I recommend we establish a permanent observation post," Viathin declared. "Something about their development pattern doesn't follow any known model." "You're overreacting," Zaxera chided. "They're using chemical rockets and radio waves. Their most advanced computers still rely on binary processing. They haven't even unified their planetary government. What could they possibly achieve that would concern the Conclave?" Viathin's crystalline appendages shifted to a pattern indicating deep thought. "Perhaps that's exactly what we should be asking ourselves. Their technological progression appears inefficient, even primitive by our standards, yet they're achieving results that should be impossible with their current knowledge base." The High Observer manipulated the display again, bringing up more human historical data. "Look at their conflict resolution patterns. Every time they've faced a superior force, they've appeared to remain technologically stagnant, until suddenly demonstrating capabilities their opponents never saw coming." "You're seeing patterns where none exist," Zaxera insisted. "They're simply following the standard development curve of all intelligent species, albeit with some statistical variations." Before Viathin could respond, another alert demanded their attention. The human vessel they'd been tracking had done something unexpected. It had altered its course with a precision that should have been impossible for chemical propulsion. Explain that, Viathan challenged. Zexera's patterns showed the first signs of uncertainty. Perhaps our sensors are malfunctioning. I'll order a diagnostic. But Viathan was already running calculations. The trajectory change didn't match any known limitations of chemical propulsion technology. Either the humans had discovered something new or... I'm recommending immediate implementation of Protocol 7, Viathan announced, their patterns shifting to formal declaration mode. Zexera's bioluminescence flared in shock. Protocol 7? That's for potentially dangerous species. These humans barely qualify as a civilization by conclave standards. Exactly, Viathan replied. By conclave standards. But what if our standards are blinding us to something new? Something we've never encountered before. The science director's dismissal was interrupted by yet another sensor alert. The human vessel had disappeared from their quantum tracking systems, something that should have been impossible for a civilization at their level. A sensor malfunction, Zexera insisted, but their patterns betrayed growing uncertainty. Or, Viathan suggested, their crystalline form pulsing with intensity were making the oldest mistake in galactic history, assuming that our path of technological development is the only valid one. The chamber fell silent as both aliens contemplated the implications. On the displays, human communications continued to flood in, a cacophony of signals that painted a picture of a species that seemed primitive on the surface, but consistently defied expectations. Implement Protocol 7, Viathan decided, overriding Zexera's objection. But with a modification. No direct interference. We observe only. Something tells me we need to understand much more about these humans before we even consider making contact. As the order was logged into the Conclave's quantum network, Viathan studied the last known position of the vanished human vessel. In all their centuries of observation, they'd never encountered a species that made them question their own assumptions about technological progress. Perhaps that alone was reason enough for caution. In the depths of space, undetected by even the Conclave's advanced sensors, the human vessel continued its carefully calculated journey, its crew well aware they were being watched, but equally aware that sometimes the best way to advance was to let others underestimate you. The game of patience had begun. Junior observer Krell had never seen the Conclave's testing chamber so active. Streams of quantum data flowed through the crystalline walls as dozens of senior researchers analyzed the results of their latest experiment with the humans. The atmosphere crackled with a mixture of frustration and fascination. Impossible, muttered Chief Researcher NX Vec, their neural patterns flickering with agitation. They solved it. Again. Krell studied the holographic display showing the latest test results. The Conclave had engineered what they considered an impossible scenario, a massive solar flare threatening to destroy the humans' Mars colony. By all calculations, the primitive chemical rockets and basic radiation shielding the humans possessed should have been insufficient to save their colonists. Yet here were the results, not a single human casualty. Perhaps we underestimated their chemical propulsion technology, suggested another researcher, but Krell noticed something nobody else seemed to be discussing. Excuse me, Krell ventured, causing several senior observers to turn their sensory arrays toward them with mild annoyance. Has anyone analyzed their response time? What about it? NXVEC's neural patterns showed impatience. They began evacuation procedures 3 hours before our sensors detected the solar flare. The chamber fell silent. Krell continued, their own patterns pulsing with growing excitement. Either their solar observation technology is far more advanced than we thought, or they knew it was coming, finished High Observer Viathan, who had entered the chamber unnoticed. Just like they happened to be prepared for the asteroid we deflected toward their orbital stations last month. Krell felt a surge of validation. They had been tracking anomalies in human response patterns for months, but no one had taken their reports seriously. Until now. Review all test scenarios from the past year, Viathan commanded. The chamber's displays filled with data from dozens of manufactured crises the Conclave had created to test human capabilities. Krell had already memorized them all, The mysterious plague that should have devastated their livestock, the targeted electromagnetic pulse that should have crippled their power grid, the artificially induced earthquakes. In every case, the humans had not just survived but had emerged stronger, implementing new technologies and procedures that somehow always seemed to be in development, just before they were needed. "They're playing us," Krell declared, earning shocked ripples from the senior researchers. "Look at their pattern. Every crisis we engineer, they respond with a solution that appears to be barely adequate, using technology that seems to be at the exact level we'd expect. It's too perfect." "Are you suggesting," NXVEC's patterns showed disbelief, "that a species still using silicon-based computing has been anticipating and countering our tests?" "I'm suggesting," Krell replied, drawing up more data, "that we've been so focused on what we think they should be capable of, we've missed what they actually are capable of." Viathan moved to the central display, bringing up footage from Earth's various space programs. "Notice how their public space technology has remained largely unchanged for decades. Chemical rockets, basic orbital stations, primitive Mars habitats. Yet their success rate in crisis response exceeds statistical probability by several orders of magnitude." Krell highlighted a particular data stream. "And there's something else. Our quantum sensors have been experiencing increasingly frequent malfunctions near Earth. Short-duration blind spots that our diagnostic systems can't explain." "That's hardly evidence of advanced technology," NXVEC objected. "Their entire civilization runs on technology we mastered millennia ago." "Does it?" Krell challenged. "Or is that just what we see?" Before anyone could respond, alarms blared through the chamber. The quantum displays showed multiple sensor failures around Mars. When they recovered 30 seconds later, something had changed. The humans had launched a new mission to Mars, officially to resupply their colonies after the solar flare incident. But Krell's analysis showed an anomaly. The mission's payload mass didn't match its observed propulsion effects. "They're hiding something," Krell insisted. "Each crisis we engineer gives them an excuse to deploy new capabilities while maintaining the appearance of barely adequate technology." Viathan's patterns shifted to deep concern. "If you're right, then our testing program has been giving them perfect cover to develop and deploy advanced technology without revealing their true capabilities," Krell finished. The chamber erupted in debate, but Krell was already analyzing the next level of implications. If the humans had indeed been aware of the Conclave's tests, if they had been deliberately appearing more primitive than they were, then the question wasn't just what they were capable of, but why they were hiding it. In the quantum displays, another human supply mission prepared to launch. Its stated purpose was routine colony maintenance, but Krell noticed how it coincided perfectly with the blind spot in their sensor network. "Stop all tests," Viathan suddenly ordered, their patterns showing urgent revelation. "Immediately." "But the next scenario is already in motion," NXVEC protested. "We've introduced a quantum instability in their solar system's gravity well. Their primitive sensors won't detect it until exactly when they need to detect it," Krell interrupted, understanding dawning. "Just like every other test we've conducted." Viathan's patterns flared with alarm. "Shut it down. Now." But as the researchers scrambled to abort the test, Krell realized something that sent their own patterns into chaos. The humans' response to this crisis would reveal whether they'd been right. And somehow, they suspected that humanity had already prepared for this exact scenario. The game of patience was about to enter its next phase, and Krell couldn't shake the feeling that the Conclave wasn't the one controlling the experiment anymore. The quantum displays continued to show routine human space activity, everything appearing normal and primitive on the surface. But now, watching more carefully, Krell could see it. The subtle patterns, the too perfect responses, the carefully maintained appearance of technological limitation. The humans weren't just being tested. They were conducting a test of their own. Viathan's patterns flared with alarm. "Shut it down. Now." But as the researchers scrambled to abort the test, Krell realized something that sent their own patterns into chaos. The humans' response to this crisis would reveal whether they'd been right. And somehow, they suspected that humanity had already prepared for this exact scenario. The game of patience was about to enter its next phase, and Krell couldn't shake the feeling that the Conclave wasn't the one controlling the experiment anymore. The quantum displays continued to show routine human space activity, everything appearing normal and primitive on the surface. But now, watching more carefully, Krell could see it. The subtle patterns, the too perfect responses, the carefully maintained appearance of technological limitation. The humans weren't just being tested. They were conducting a test of their own. They're learning, Sarah mused. Faster than we anticipated. Admiral Rodriguez straightened in his chair. Maybe it's time we showed them something real. Just a glimpse. Sarah considered the suggestion. The original plan had been to maintain the deception until Helios was complete, but Krell's insights were changing the equation. Perhaps a controlled revelation would be better than letting them stumble onto the truth haphazardly. Bring up the Mars colony feeds, she ordered. The displays shifted to show the public face of humanity's Mars presence. Simple habitats, chemical rockets, basic life support systems. Then, with a keystroke, Sarah revealed what lay beneath: vast underground cities, quantum power generators, and transportation hubs that linked to similar facilities across the solar system. If we reveal this, Dr. Patel warned, there's no going back. We're not revealing anything, Sarah corrected. We're letting them catch a glimpse. Just enough to make Krell question everything they think they know about us. She pulled up the plans for humanity's next public space mission, a routine supply run to Mars that would pass directly through the Conclave's monitoring zone. We'll let them detect a quantum variance in the ship's drive signature, she explained. Something their sensors can't quite explain, but also can't definitively prove is advanced technology. Let's see what Krell makes of that. The team began preparations, each member knowing their role in the carefully choreographed dance of revelation and concealment that had kept humanity's secrets safe for generations. There's something else, Lieutenant Shin interrupted, his expression concerned. We're detecting unusual activity in the Conclave's military channels. It seems Krell's warnings have sparked a debate. Some factions are advocating for direct intervention. Sarah's expression hardened. This was the scenario they'd been preparing for since the beginning. They're not ready to learn how outmatched they'd be. She brought up another display, this one showing the true extent of Earth's defenses: quantum shields that could deflect any known weapon, surveillance systems that tracked every ship within 50 light-years, and response capabilities that could reduce a hostile fleet to atoms before it entered the solar system. Continue with the planned reveal, she ordered. But activate Protocol Omega if they choose to intervene. She paused, looking at the assembled leaders of humanity's secret space program. They need to understand that patience doesn't equal weakness. As the team dispersed to their stations, Sarah remained at the central console, watching the patterns of conclave communications flow across the quantum displays. They had hoped to maintain the charade until Helios was complete, but perhaps Krell's insight was a gift, a chance to guide the aliens toward understanding rather than fear. They're learning, Sarah mused. Faster than we anticipated. Admiral Rodriguez straightened in his chair. Maybe it's time we showed them something real. Just a glimpse. Sarah considered the suggestion. The original plan had been to maintain the deception until Helios was complete, but Krell's insights were changing the equation. Perhaps a controlled revelation would be better than letting them stumble onto the truth haphazardly. Bring up the Mars colony feeds, she ordered. The displays shifted to show the public face of humanity's Mars presence: simple habitats, chemical rockets, basic life support systems. Then, with a keystroke, Sarah revealed what lay beneath: vast underground cities, quantum power generators, and transportation hubs that linked to similar facilities across the solar system. If we reveal this, Dr. Patel warned, there's no going back. We're not revealing anything, Sarah corrected. We're letting them catch a glimpse. Just enough to make Krell question everything they think they know about us. She pulled up the plans for humanity's next public space mission, a routine supply run to Mars that would pass directly through the Conclave's monitoring zone. We'll let them detect a quantum variance in the ship's drive signature, she explained. Something their sensors can't quite explain, but also can't definitively prove is advanced technology. Let's see what Krell makes of that. The team began preparations, each member knowing their role in the carefully choreographed dance of revelation and concealment that had kept humanity's secrets safe for generations. "There's something else," Lieutenant Chin interrupted, his expression concerned. "We're detecting unusual activity in the Conclave's military channels. It seems Krell's warnings have sparked a debate. Some factions are advocating for direct intervention." Sarah's expression hardened. This was the scenario they'd been preparing for since the beginning. They're not ready to learn how outmatched they'd be. She brought up another display, this one showing the true extent of Earth's defenses: quantum shields that could deflect any known weapon, surveillance systems that tracked every ship within 50 light-years, and response capabilities that could reduce a hostile fleet to atoms before it entered the solar system. "Continue with the planned reveal," she ordered. "But activate Protocol Omega if they choose to intervene." She paused, looking at the assembled leaders of humanity's secret space program. They need to understand that patience doesn't equal weakness. As the team dispersed to their stations, Sarah remained at the central console, watching the patterns of conclave communications flow across the quantum displays. They had hoped to maintain the charade until Helios was complete, but perhaps Krell's insight was a gift, a chance to guide the aliens toward understanding rather than fear. After all, humanity's greatest achievement wasn't their advanced technology. It was learning when not to use it. The next few days would reveal whether the Conclave could learn the same lesson. The attack came without warning. 3 Conclave warships, belonging to the militant Vexkar faction, dropped out of quantum space near the Mars colony. Their energy signatures blazed across humanity's hidden sensor network like supernovas, a deliberate show of force meant to intimidate what they believed was a primitive civilization. In the deep space complex, Sarah Chin watched the scenario unfold with an unsettling calm. "They're earlier than we expected," she noted, her fingers dancing across the quantum interface. "Sound the public alert." Across Mars, sirens began to wail. The colonial population, all carefully selected and trained for this eventuality, began their rehearsed panic. Frantic radio messages, primitive, easily interceptable, flooded the channels between Earth and Mars. "Vexkar ships are powering up their primary weapons," Lieutenant Chin reported. "They're targeting the main colony dome." Admiral Rodriguez's hologram flickered in the command center. "Our response." Sarah studied the tactical display, watching as Krell's research vessel appeared at the edge of the system. The young alien observer had followed the warships, presumably to document what they believed would be a simple show of force against a primitive species. "Let them fire the first shot," Sarah commanded. "But activate the Aegis protocol." Deep beneath the Martian surface, quantum generators hummed to life. Fields of probability began to shift, invisible to conventional sensors, but profoundly altering the fabric of local spacetime. The Vexkar ships fired. 3 lances of concentrated plasma, each capable of vaporizing a small moon, streaked toward the Mars colony. On the surface, colonists ran for their primitive shelters, their panic broadcast across all frequencies. The plasma bolts never reached their target. One moment they existed, the next they simply weren't. No explosion, no impact, no trace they had ever existed at all. The space around Mars rippled slightly, like heat waves over hot pavement. In the deep space complex, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Send the message." Across every quantum frequency the Conclave used, in perfect alien script, a single message appeared. That was unwise. The Vexkar ship sensors went wild, suddenly detecting energy signatures orders of magnitude beyond their comprehension. The Mars colony's primitive dome shimmered and disappeared, revealing a vast metropolis of advanced technology that had been there all along. "They're charging weapons again," Lieutenant Chin reported. "Show them," Sarah ordered. From the surface of Mars, thousands of points of light emerged, quantum drones, each carrying enough computational power to run a small civilization. They swarmed around the Conclave ships in perfect formation, creating complex geometric patterns that spelled out words in space. "Choose carefully." On the tactical display, Krell's research vessel was transmitting furiously, presumably trying to warn the Vexcar ships about the anomalies they had observed in human behavior. But the Millennium faction had come expecting an easy victory, a chance to prove their superiority over a primitive species. The Vexcar commander's response came as a broad-spectrum transmission. Your parlor tricks don't impress us. Surrender your colony or face extinction. Sarah sighed. Very well. Lieutenant Chin, show them what extinction really looks like. A single quantum pulse emanated from Mars. When it reached the Vexcar ships, their quantum drives simply deactivated. The mighty warships hung in space, powerless except for basic life support. Attention conclave vessels, Sarah's voice transmitted across all frequencies, no longer bothering to hide their quantum communication capabilities. Your weapons are disabled. Your drives are offline. Your shields exist at our pleasure. You have 1 hour to consider your choices. The command center fell silent, watching the tactical display. The Vexcar ships hung motionless, their crews presumably trying to comprehend how a primitive species had neutralized their most advanced technology with a single pulse. Krell's ship is requesting communication, Lieutenant Chen reported. Sarah nodded. Put them through. Visual only from their end. Krell's crystalline form appeared on the main display, their patterns showing a mixture of fear, awe, and validation. You knew, the alien observer said simply. You knew all along we were watching. Yes, Sarah replied. Just as we knew some faction would eventually try this. The only question was when. The conclave, they need to understand. They will, Sarah interrupted. That's why we let you follow the Vexcar ships. You're our witness, Krell. Not to our technology, but to our restraint. The aliens' patterns shifted to confusion. You could have destroyed them. We still could, Sarah confirmed. But that's not who we are. Humanity's greatest power isn't our technology, Krell. It's our ability to choose when not to use it. As if to emphasize her point, the quantum drones rearranged themselves, forming a bridge of light between the disabled conclave ships and Mars. An invitation. Your ships will remain disabled, Sarah explained, but we invite your crews to experience true human hospitality. To see what you could have learned if you'd chosen diplomacy over dominance. Krell's patterns shifted rapidly, processing the implications. The conclave will never be the same after this. Sarah's expression softened slightly. That's the idea, Krell. Change doesn't have to come through violence. Sometimes it comes through understanding. As escape pods began launching from the Vexcar ships, accepting the invitation, Sarah wondered if the conclave would understand the real message behind today's demonstration. Humanity had never been hiding out of fear. They had been waiting for the right moment to teach a lesson about the true meaning of civilization. The conclave's grand chamber had never been so silent. Thousands of alien representatives sat motionless as they watched the holographic recording from Mars for the third time. The mighty Vexcar warships rendered powerless. The quantum drones writing messages in the void. The hidden city emerging from beneath its primitive disguise. Krell stood before them, their crystalline form steady despite the gravity of the moment. What you've witnessed is not merely a technological revelation, they began. It represents a fundamental misunderstanding of human civilization, one that I fear may have nearly led us to catastrophe. High Observer Viethan's patterns pulsed with distress. How? How did we miss this level of advancement? Because, a new voice answered, you were looking for mirrors of yourselves. Sarah Chen strode into the chamber, the first human to ever enter this sacred space. She wore a simple black uniform with no insignia, no weapons, nothing to suggest the immense power she represented. Impossible, someone whispered. Our quantum shields. Are impressive, Sarah finished, a small smile playing at her lips. But they operate on principles we mastered decades ago. May I? She gestured to the chamber's central display. After a moment's hesitation, Viethan nodded. The holographic space filled with new images, Earth's hidden quantum laboratories, the Helios Project's vast infrastructure, and technologies that made even the Conclave's most advanced achievements seem primitive by comparison. But your development path, one of the elder observers protested. The chemical rockets, the radio waves, the silicon computers were real, Sarah confirmed. We use them. Still use them. Because true advancement isn't about abandoning simpler technologies, it's about understanding all paths to progress. She waved her hand, and the display shifted to show something that made the entire chamber ripple with shock. Humans working alongside artificial intelligences that dwarf the Conclave's computational abilities, but choosing to do many tasks manually. Quantum drives capable of crossing galaxies in seconds, alongside chemical rockets still being used for orbital operations. You see, Krell interjected, their patterns showing sudden understanding. They didn't follow our path because they found a better one. They master all paths, using each tool where it fits best. Sarah nodded. Your civilization chose quantum technology as your primary path. You refined it, perfected it, but also became dependent on it. We chose everything. The display shifted again, showing human children learning both quantum physics and traditional mechanics, scientists combining ancient philosophical principles with cutting-edge technology, engineers using both digital and quantum computing in seamless harmony. When we detected your first probe in 1951, Sarah continued, we faced a choice. We could announce ourselves and be seen as primitive, or you could watch us watching you, Viathan finished, their patterns showing a mix of admiration and chagrin. We learned from you, Sarah acknowledged. Your successes, your limitations, your blind spots. We saw how your single path to advancement had left you vulnerable to alternative approaches. The chamber erupted in discussion, thousands of alien minds trying to process this paradigm shift. Their entire understanding of technological progress, of civilization itself, was being challenged. The Vexcar ships, someone asked. You could have destroyed them. Of course, Sarah replied simply. But what would that have proven? That we can do what you do, just better? We wanted to show you something else, that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to choose not to. She gestured once more, and the display showed the Vexcar crews being welcomed in the Mars colony, learning, sharing, understanding. This is why we waited, Sarah explained. Not out of fear, not out of weakness, but because we wanted our first true contact to be about more than just comparing technological achievements. Krell moved to stand beside her, a symbolic gesture that sent ripples through the chamber. The humans aren't just our technological equals, they declared. They may be our evolutionary successors. Not because their technology is more advanced, but because they've learned to transcend the very concept of linear advancement. Sarah smiled. We prefer to think of it as parallel evolution. You've achieved wonders following your path. We've achieved different wonders following many paths. Imagine what we could accomplish together. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different. It was not the silence of shock or fear, but of possibility. There will be resistance, Viathan warned. Many will fear this change. Of course, Sarah agreed. Change is always frightening. But consider this, we revealed ourselves not by destroying your ships, not by demanding recognition, but by offering understanding. That choice was deliberate. The quantum displays showed one final image, the Helios project nearly complete, capable of harnessing the power of a star. This is our invitation, Sarah concluded. Not to submit to our power, but to join us in exploring all paths to advancement. The universe is vast, and no single approach can unlock all its mysteries. As the conclave representatives began to discuss among themselves, Sarah shared a knowing look with Krell. The real paradigm shift wasn't just in what humanity had achieved, but in how they had achieved it. The age of single-path progress was ending. The age of infinite possibilities was about to begin. 5 years after humanity's revelation to the conclave, the Sol system had become a symbol of what was possible when different paths of advancement converged. The orbital rings of Earth and Mars teemed with ships of all kinds, from elegant quantum vessels of the conclave to humanity's hybrid craft that combined multiple technologies in ways that still surprised their alien colleagues. Sarah Chen stood in the observation dome of Unity Station, watching a massive conclave research vessel dock alongside a much smaller human ship. The contrast was striking, the alien vessel's crystalline quantum architecture next to the practical, multi-technology approach of human engineering. Still amazes them, Krell noted, their crystalline form refracting the starlight. Over the years, the alien observer had become humanity's strongest advocate in the conclave and a personal friend to Sarah. They can't understand how your smaller ship generates more power. Because they're still thinking in terms of single-solution optimization, Sarah replied. They perfect one approach until it can't be improved further. You combine and recombine, finding synergies no one else thought to look for, Krell finished. Their patterns shifted to what Sarah had learned to recognize as amusement. The quantum chemical hybrid drives alone have revolutionized our understanding of propulsion. The observation dome's displays showed various projects underway throughout the solar system. The Helios project, now complete, had been transformed into a joint human conclave initiative, its power being used to fuel experiments that neither civilization could have attempted alone. Report from the Jupiter Research Station, Lieutenant Chen's voice announced through the quantum link. The first test of the dimensional interface was successful. Both human and conclave equations proved correct. Sarah smiled. It was another example of their new approach, combining the conclave's mastery of quantum mechanics with humanity's more diverse mathematical models. The result was opening up entirely new fields of physics. The hardliners are coming around, Krell observed, their patterns showing satisfaction. Even the Vexcar faction has requested permission to establish a learning center on Mars. Amazing what a little humility can accomplish, Sarah mused. On both sides, the displays shifted to show a new arrival, a ship of completely novel design, the first true collaboration between human and conclave engineers. It incorporated technologies and principles from both civilizations, but its final form was something entirely new. The synthesis project is ahead of schedule, Krell reported. The first deep space expedition will launch next month. Sarah nodded. The joint mission would venture beyond known space, crewed by both humans and conclave members, using technology that represented the best of both approaches. But more importantly, it carried a new philosophy, one that valued diversity of thought over dogmatic adherence to any single path. There's something else, Krell added, their patterns shifting to a more serious configuration. We've detected signals from beyond the galactic rim. Sarah turned to face her friend. The others? Yes, the ones we thought were just legends. They're real, and they're watching us. Just as you once watched us. The implications were enormous. The Conclave had legends of vastly more advanced civilizations that existed beyond the galaxy, but they had always remained just that, legends. Until now. How did we detect them? Sarah asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. We wouldn't have, using either human or conclave technology alone, Krell confirmed. It was only visible through the new hybrid sensors. They may have been watching us for millennia. Sarah laughed softly. History repeats itself. We watched you, learning and growing in secret. They watched us all, presumably doing the same. The question is, Krell's patterns showed both excitement and apprehension. What do we do about it? Sarah turned back to the view of Earth, considering. Below them, the cradle of human civilization shone blue and green, now surrounded by the fruits of two civilizations' combined knowledge. They had learned so much from each other, grown so much together. We do what we've learned to do best, she decided. We observe, we learn, and we prepare. But this time, we do it together. And when they choose to reveal themselves, we'll be ready, Krell finished. Not as separate civilizations, but as something new. The displays showed more ships arriving, vessels of all designs and technologies, each representing different approaches to the same challenges. The new balance wasn't about finding a single perfect solution, but about embracing the strength that comes from diversity of thought and approach. Send a message to the Conclave Council, Sarah instructed. Tell them it's time for the next phase of evolution. Not just in technology, but in how we think about advancement itself. As Krell transmitted the message, Sarah watched the hybrid ship prepare for its mission. It represented everything they had learned, that true progress comes not from choosing one path over others, but from learning to walk all paths simultaneously. That real strength lies not in superiority, but in the wisdom to learn from every approach. The age of single-path thinking was over. The age of infinite combinations had begun. And somewhere, beyond the galactic rim, another civilization was watching, perhaps waiting for the right moment to add their own knowledge to the growing synthesis of ideas. The universe, it seemed, had many more lessons to teach. And now, at last, they were ready to learn them all.